Turkey, the only country in the world that resides in two continents, Asia and Europe. It is bordered by the countries of Greece, Bulgaria, Syria, Georgia, Armenia, Iraq, Iran, and the Black and Mediterranean Sea. A country that hosts the world's largest airport, as well as a dormant volcano, Turkey was founded in 1923, following the fall of the Ottoman Empire. Throughout the course of its history, Turkish people have been known for their hospitality and for their love of tea. They enjoy soccer very deeply, and it is often a topic of conversation during dinner and parties. Although Turks are depicted as rude and dangerous people in movies and shows, they are very generous and often invite guests to have lunch or dinner at their houses. However, all is not well in the country, since its diplomatic relationships with the US and several other countries are under great tension and could possibly lead to trouble. Over the past year, Turkey has struggled with the country of Syria, since the fighting has continued and very aggressively. Recently, the US began to withdraw troops from Syria, which has abandoned a stable part of the region and forced the Kurds, their allies, to seek help with the Assad regime. As a result, the Kurds are now forced to fend for themselves, and the Turkish government has been left completely vulnerable to attacks and has been forced to deal with the rebels of the Islamic State of ISIS by themselves. We now have our central CNN news program with our two specialists on international news back in London, and I have some questions for you guys. Why does everything that is going on with Syria matter? Why does the situation between Turkey, Syria, and the United States matter internationally and globally to the whole world?
What everyone feared, a free-for-all in what was, one of the most stable parts in Syria because of the, cooperation between U.S. Forces and the Syrian Kurds. Particularly the YPG, and the U.S. had been supporting these Kurds to fight ISIS. Now that President Trump has announced that he's withdrawing, there was a lot of concern that he was abandoning the Kurds, which have really been a stable partner. And now it's a free-for-all where the Kurds have cut a deal with Assad. It's pretty clear. They've been kind of flirting with him for a while, but now they've cut a deal for Assad to come back into the area. And that leaves the Kurds free to go after their real nemesis, which is Turkey. They're looking for a separatist area between Syria and Turkey. And now this really leaves Turkey pretty vulnerable.
Exactly. So when President Trump announced that he was going to withdraw troops from Syria, and then the defense secretary resigned, we all heard and we knew that the Kurds will feel abandoned. So essentially what we're seeing here is that they feel abandoned and betrayed. So they cut a deal with the bad guy per se, which is the Syrian President Assad.
I mean, just on a human level, imagine the thought process that you are turning to a war criminal who uses chemical weapons against civilians to guarantee your safety against a Turkish onslaught. I think our forces in this area have served as a deterrent. They've served as a deterrent to Turkey and their designs on the Kurdish forces that are there, but they've also served as a deterrent against Bashar al-Assad. Bashar al-Assad has not acted against the civilians in this region because we've had forces on the ground. He hasn't used chemical weapons there recently, and he hasn't used other forms of war crimes because our forces were there and he didn't want to get crosswise with us. The Kurds are making a calculation that working with the regime in the short term may protect them. They've worked with the regime before in other parts of Syria, in a region called Afrin. But I don't think they're fooled in thinking that this is a long-term solution. Bashar al-Assad is not a reliable guarantor of anyone's safety, including the Kurds.
Recently, Turkey and Syrian-opposed military forces launched a counterattack to Syrian Kurdish attacks in northern Syria, a region controlled by Turkey. The encounter resulted in one dead soldier and several injured, according to Turkish officials. The situation is getting worse, since the once stable region in Syria has become a free-for-all. Now we have insight that Assad plans on using chemical weapons in its all-out war on Idlib, a region controlled by Turkey, to which Turkey recommended a ceasefire, which was denied by the Russian and Syrian officials, our sources say. A recent Turkish offensive sent the Syrian forces retreating into their own territory, and after an easy defeat for ISIS, the Turkish forces encountered the Kurds, the United States allies, which has set the relationship between the US and Turkey on eggshells. The Turkish President Erdogan has defended these assaults and counters by his forces and says there will be no turning back. The recent situation in Turkey and in the Middle East has caused a lot of tension in the country and produced a lot of turmoil and destruction among the cities and towns. However, both sides are reluctant to end the war and both sides are determined to win, which ultimately leaves us as bystanders to watch as this unfolds and forces us to ask an important question. To what extreme will these countries go to in order to win the war? From Phoenix, Arizona, this has been all from CNN.